Very good morning, everybody. Welcome to the PAM Online Series, Season 2. Today, 13 June 2020, Saturday, from 11 to 12 o'clock. This week, we are going to talk about the CSR journey. With us, we have a list of panelists. Myself is Architect Mustapha Kamal, being the moderator for this session for today. With me is Architect Mumtazah Mustajab, the chairman for PAM CSR Committee. We have Architect Chan Foong from Sabah, Architect David Teoh Leng from Perumunan Alam Bina, Technologist Suffian Shahabuddin and Idzfan Zainal, and also Hazazi Hamzah. Just to make yourself familiarized with this CSR journey and also our PAM online series, throughout this session, you will be given 2 codes. So please be reminded to take note of the codes, because these codes are the one which is vital for you to fill up, and in the closing questionnaire that will be posted on the PAM online series website too. And if you cannot get the scanning to the Safari, you can type bit.ly at PAM OS 1S2. Okay, so you'll be given the opportunity to ask questions towards the end of the presentation. And these are very important announcements, because if you're on Zoom, you are able to collect your 2 codes of CPD points. So if you got any assistance or trouble, you just go to pamonlineseries@gmail.com. Our support team will be happy to answer any questions about you. Okay, so I think without further ado, let's enjoy our CSR online series edition 1. There will be 2, but this is the first one of the 2. So I've already introduced you all the speakers. So before that, I would like to say a few words as a moderator. Salam sejahtera and a very good morning to Architect Wan Sophia Wan Ishak, Chairperson of PAM CPD Committee, Architect Mumtazah Mustajab, Chairperson of PAM CSR Committee, learned and distinguished speakers and presenters. So welcome to PAM Online CSR Journey, the Design of Quarantine Centers Edition 1. This is a collaboration between PAM CPD Committee and PAM CSR Committee for PAM Online Series Season 2. Let us begin the program for today by offering our prayers in any manner of our beliefs to the frontliners whom have stood steadfast in the fight against COVID-19, as well as those whom have left us as a result of this COVID-19. Thank you very much. So let us begin the program today. PAM's aim for these 2 webinars is to highlight and appraise the role of architects during the times of emergencies, how even under duress moments of pandemic or any other emergencies, the architects can still perform. We would like to portray the architects are not people in the heavens that only design iconic artifacts. They are human with feelings and will rise to the occasion when the situation warrants. Each and every one of them here that you can see on the screen are special people, especially the 7 groups of architects plus A.R. Chan, whom are our version of the frontliners, is an amazing breed. Give them a round of applause. They rose and offered something useful within a few hours after it was informed of the specific needs needed during this emergency. So it is with great honor for me to have Architect Mumtazah Mustajab to give her welcoming remarks. So welcome, Architect Mumtazah. You need to unmute your microphone.
I forgot. Okay. Assalamualaikum. Can I have the slides, please? Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera to all PAM members and everybody. My name is Architect Mumtazah and I chair the CSR Committee and Social Responsibility Committee, which was set up early last year. The committee's vision, can we go to the first slide, please? Thank you. First slide. The committee's vision is to provide a one-stop center to facilitate and sustain members' opportunity, interest, and engagement with society in social responsibility programs for meaningful connection and experience in making a positive impact on society as well as the environment, so that it will be in line with PAM's constitution based on the following trust: architecture for society, sincerity and spirituality, ethics, inclusivity, and awareness through education. And PAM's CSR model is social, education, health and safety, accessibility, and environment. This is also in line with PAM's objective alignment, which is with the Sustainable Development Goals, SDG, ACSR Committee on Social Responsibility, ACSR Charter, and the UIA Architecture for All, AFA objectives. Next slide, please. So in 19 March 2020, Day 2 of Malaysian Movement Control, MCO, PAM CSR Committee actually received a call from MERCY Malaysia to provide sketch design proposals of an independent structure for the Quarantine and Isolation Center for Infectious Disease, specifically COVID-19. So our team actually responded very quickly by setting a simple design brief, which would be briefed out by Datin Nowina, and calling volunteer architects that had resulted in 7 design proposals in 3 days, or actually in less than 3 days, amazingly. These designs were submitted through MERCY Malaysia and were shown to National Disaster Management Agency, NADMA, and Ministry of Health, MOH, at a special meeting on Monday, 23rd March 2020. Bear in mind, we are in MCO already. So while waiting decision, the voluntary PAM Emergency Team was subsequently expanded to include architectural, medical experts, designers, and engineers in preparedness. While the team continues earmarking existing convention centers and stadiums as quarantine centers with retrofitting designs and compiling directory of supplies for materials, team has also prepared term of reference to call upon PAM Architect volunteers nationwide to assist the government in assessing non-hospital gazetted premises for quarantine purposes during MCO for COVID-19 pandemic. So the team was set up during MCO period. Various action plans, checklists, and guidelines have been prepared in a very short time for volunteer architects' role in preparedness of working alongside other authorities on stipulated sites during MCO. This pandemic response processes, protocols, and training procedures were formulated aligned with available guidelines, regulations, and frameworks referred locally and from accredited international sources, WHO, IHF, ACSR, UIA. The original response team, if you notice that we have quite a big organization chart. So the response team was set out to establish, plan, manage, mitigate, and assess the proposed PAM disaster management strategy, which is as a proactive role for the architecture profession in terms of need to include collaboration with MERCY Malaysia and other agencies like Fire Department, the Army, and so on. However, during MCO, the team was set up of members. Originally, they are the volunteer participants that responded to the call for design field hospitals for quarantine center for infectious disease. It was established at the convergence phase with the aims of deployment of volunteer architects to execute the action plan. Team also works to finalize the planning for operations of the action plan to ensure the work protocols are established, account and for resources, assess and confirm project parameters, report on situation on ground, and aim to achieve the objectives set out within the action plan. At the same time, the advisory and approving team was also set up to advise and approve activities as well as documentations prepared and carried out by the C19 CSR response team. The team consists mainly of council key members, as to ensure that the team's activities and information are disseminated properly to all members as per the PAM rules and guidelines. Next slide, please. These teams had worked voluntarily with passion throughout MCO from their respective residences day and night with high enthusiasm and spirit of volunteerism despite restrictions imposed by the government. Although uncertain of the local, national, and global pandemic situation where no one had ever experienced such, we had only each other to hold on to with words of advice and encouragement from fellow members, local and international associated organizations, whilst grabbing whatever references that we can find for that glimpse of hope. Understanding the climate of uncertainty still surrounding the country's atmosphere, these webinar series are not meant to be conclusive or a show of expertise, but to share the expert of the 8 volunteer designers and architects in contributing to this country. I would like to thank PAM, MERCY Malaysia, PAM CSR Committee, the medical designers, architects and engineers, architects who have volunteered for this program, and everybody. It was actually an amazing experience, very educational, very informative, and excellent teamwork by all in times of emergencies. Back to you, Mus. Mus, back to you.
Sorry. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will continue to webinar today by welcoming Architect Datin Nowina to explain to us and everyone here about the brief that was given to these architects for our collaboration with MERCY Malaysia. To you, Datin.
So, okay, can I have the slides very quickly? Am I going to do it or okay, let me see if I can share my screen.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, okay. Have you disabled? Right. Host has to disable the screen.
Please proceed.
All right. Okay, can have it? Yeah.
Can we have the slides of Datin Uwina? Thank you.
The one in PDF, yeah. Because I cannot share the screen. Hang on. Okay, I can. Share. Right. Technical glitch.
It's okay.
All right. I'm not sure how.
Just press the green button.
I already put share, but it is not now. Hang on.
Never mind that thing. Just which slide you want me to share?
The brief.
The brief, plan design brief.
Okay.
Okay.
I think while waiting for the technical team to put up, I think as what Architect Moose was saying, the other one, the PDF. This is the final brief, but we can have the other one, the PDF slides. So yes, that's the one. Right, correct. If you could just go on the screen, the first one. Okay, this is the brief we were supposed to prepare was based on what MERCY Malaysia requests. It's supposed to be a design brief for field hospitals. We were saying, okay, field hospital, but it's supposed to be holding PUIs and symptomatic patient. And while we gather a team to actually brainstorm, so we have a bit of a background studies because as a former public works architect and also working with Ministry of Health before, we have experience on SARS. So we have done some design before, and I think the Ministry of Health also have actually identified the infectious disease sites for the whole nation. Can you bring up the PDF a bit? Okay, this is basically what we were thinking about. What are we designing? It's about infections, and then what kind of infection. So you have to think about the types of infection or transmission. So this diagram is showing that basically. Can you go to the next one very quickly? Yeah. Next one. So this is about infection, and this is about a type of infection and what kind of facilities in terms of design. But this is where we come up a bit about negative pressure and so on. Can you go to the next one? The next slide. Yeah. So this one again talk about how to be designed. So there are some guidelines in the Ministry of Health guides about designing for isolation quarantine building. Okay. Next. Okay. Next slide. Okay. So these are some of the archives I have to come up with very quickly before we had a discussion. This was done with Ministry of Health back in the SARS days about design of isolation, but for infectious disease. It's not basically on COVID-19, but was basically on SARS as more to airborne, but it could be look into how it's done. Okay, next. Can you do the next one? Okay, and I think the Ministry of Health came out with some already built design throughout the country, and it's mostly retrofitting existing building. Okay, next. The next slide. Okay, now this is where our members come in. So you can see all the dates. This is all taken from the WhatsApp group that we came up with. on the 22nd of March, which is about a few days after that, where we gather information, discuss online, all done in virtual. And by the end of the day, only we came up with the requirements. So next slide. So we have the first brief, next one, okay, yeah. We have the first brief done to give to online, because I think while we're doing this, we also identify the volunteer architects that is willing to do this project. We give as a first glimpse of what the project is all about with this initial brief. Can you bring up again, another one? And then while they were designing this, we still keep on doing a referencing. Can you go to the next page, please? Yeah, these are the references we got from our ACSR member from China, from Hong Kong, and also we dig up again Ministry of Health website, all about COVID-19, the requirements. The next one. And finally, at the end of the day, on Sunday, we actually came out with a final brief. So, I have put together here the final brief, which is the next PDF. Quickly, next PDF. Yeah. Yes, this one. So just scroll. I think this is the final brief that we came up with before the 7 volunteers came up with the design the next day, early in the morning, before giving to MERCY to give to NADMA. And I'd like to thank, can you break down to the last page? So these are the people that quickly put up together the brief for the volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Datin, for that how should I say, impeccable and also detailed outline. In spite of the technical glitch, yeah, we are in the COVID-19. There's a lot of technical glitch around. Okay, so I think let's begin with the first presenter. I'd like to call for Mr. Hazazi Hamzah to actually tell us about his experiences. But before he does that, actually, myself and moderator have actually given them 3 questions for him to ask within their presentation. So what was the impression made? You designed the way it is, how it is fitting to the brief or request, and how easy it is to construct. So Mr. Hazazi, your floor is yours.
Okay, I guess all of you can hear me. Okay, Assalamualaikum, selamat pagi, selamat sejahtera, selamat Hari Raya to all of us. And I think I would like to start off with thanking everyone to give us this opportunity to share this very wonderful journey that being part of this team and part of this initiative, which is a very good initiative that I think personally is something that we should encourage and should look into more or have more discussion about it. Okay, my name is Hazazi Hamzah. Together with my partner Ashran Bahri, we are from Studio Karya. So basically, how we were involved into this is basically through a certain discussion that we had before, and then because of the situation and whatnot, then we suddenly become part of this whole initiative. So I would like to start off with a bit of a reflection on like my personal reflection towards architecture in general. I enrolled into architecture school in 2001 actually. So during that time there was 9/11, and it's a huge deal, and then because of 9/11 it becomes this world on terror and whatnot. So the whole period of time that I spent in architecture school was really about all those things. And then you have 2003 invasion of Iraq, 2004 you have tsunami in Aceh, and then 2006 you have this Israeli Hezbollah war in the Middle East, and then it continues after that as well. But in 2007, how I reflected to all of this is basically by the way I perceive architecture is slightly different, like personally, and also the discussion about architecture with my friends is pretty much slightly different than what we perceive architects as, designing, for iconic stuff to be star architects and whatnot. So basically, this image is basically my thesis proposal in 2007 called HATCH, the Dual Function Underground Facility. So it is about creating a facility that
your slide not moving. Your slide's not moving.
Not moving. Are you looking at the image now?
No.
Emergency and response.
No. Instant hospital. The word instant hospital.
Oh, okay. I'll try again.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, you got it.
Okay, sorry for that. Okay. So 2001 until 2006, then the reflection in 2007 was, basically this design of dual function facility where architecture seems as a shell of something that you can change the function according to different needs. So in a normal situation, it would be like a community center or public facility. You can do sports and entertainment and whatnot. And then in an emergency situation, it can be turned into emergency facility. Why it is underground is because taking in consideration into this war situation or any apocalyptic kind of disasters and whatnot. Okay, I'll move on to the second one. So because of that, so when I start practice and whatnot, so the idea of architecture is slightly different than what we normally understand. And when we were brought into this COVID-19 situation, and then I got this information that PAM and also MERCY basically are looking for design solution, or not really solution, but design ideas or proposal for a field hospital. So I was busy with something else, and then at 6 o'clock, on the 22nd of March, so I texted Hafiz and asked him whether there's still time for me to participate. And then he did give me some points and references for me to start work with, and then spend the whole night and then discuss with my partner as well to participate as well. So we spent like the whole night working on it, and then submitted at 12:38 in the morning, and still I got the message the following day that they're considering to put me to ask me to join the group. So that we could probably discuss this matter even furthermore. So we sent, and then the rest is history. So I think like generally because it's really about talking, the question of ethics above aesthetics, or the question of architects and the society, like what was brought by maybe Aldo van Eyck, a couple of few decades ago. And even like quite recently, probably Shiguro Ban talked about humanitarian architecture with different sort of solution. And there was always this question that probably other professions like doctors or lawyers would contribute to society even more. How architects can play their role in contributing to society in general. So that was actually one of the questions that I keep lingering in my mind. And I think Shiguro Ban did put it very nicely that everything that surround us is actually architecture. Architecture is a background for everything. So if you imagine, let's say, a doctor contributing something to a patient, which is normally would happen in a certain setting, in a hospital, in a building and whatnot, in a city, in a neighborhood. So I think we are pretty much responsible to all of this. So I wouldn't go too much on that because I only have 10 minutes. So then we start off with the response. So I think the response is that not to design too much. And probably our first response was to no need for any sort of reinvention, even though you want to design some detailing with paper tube, that would take a lot of time. So no need for reinvention, repeat what have been done successfully elsewhere in the world. So these are some images from China, Wuhan, and also from America. So you can quickly set up an instant hospital, using ready-made prefab construction material. You can basically construct within the day. So this is a basic diagram of the whole idea. So you have that I would call it like the Wuhan grid system for the hospital, and then you have like a big box situation that you cover everything up. Of course, that big box you can design in different way based on how many bays that you probably want to insert it into. So to use quick and cheap prefabricated partition walls, and then the installed hospital should be able to be assembled on site within 1 day. That, of course, that is target, but you need to pre-plan of all of this. So probably within a few days, you can actually set up like the whole hospital. And then we did mention in our submission that alternatively, the Eastern Hospital could also be set up in any unused open covered space, such as community hall, stadium, school, even mosque or for that matter. So because you can see that during MCO, there's a lot of unused building and space. So we know that we are not really utilizing architecture to the max. So this is generally the layout, although, you know, it's not like a complete solution. While designing this, probably we already have in mind that, okay, we have to work within 45 by 90 meters, and you need to place, at least from the brief that at least mentioned by Hafiz, definitely we need at least 200 bed. So the main idea is to have a certain sort of a division. So you can have two sides of the hospital. So probably you can create different compartmentation based on different situation, and then all the clinics and staff are placed in the middle, and all the toilets are placed at the side, and all the services and equipments and whatnot also in the perimeter. And of course, we set up two smaller tent to the front and also to the side, so that this can be a waiting area, or also also put here, let's say, this cubicle that you can do the swab test and whatnot. Although we need more advice from KKM and whatnot, but I think as an idea, this is something that I think probably later on Chan would show how it actually being practiced in reality. But of course, as an idea, is something like that. So I think this sort of architecture, something that we can work collaboratively. Of course, we had in mind, if let's say we have to build this, then of course we are open to discuss with other people in the field, other profession, for instance, to really make things work even better. A little bit on the zoom in of the sketch, so you can see, let's say, the waiting area and the swab test cube, and then as you enter, and then only you enter into the isolation space and whatnot. Of course, we try to work out, the distance between bed, quite minimal, not to the normal standard. I think based on, some study on the Wuhan situation, it's quite cramped. But of course, in an emergency situation, we have to, make do with what we have. And then the ambulance lay, drop off is actually in the middle there, then you can actually easily go out from the area. And a little idea of the whole thing. So the big box setup, and with two smaller tent for swab tests and some other field equipments and whatnot. And then probably
Hazazi, 1 minute. Thanks.
All right. So I think with that, I would like to end. Let's say the question of role of architects, designers, graduates, lecturers, students, citizens, and in general human. So what we need to do, I mean, like from this experience, we know that we need a certain form, a certain way of, reforming certain things that, probably doesn't work anymore, or probably, need a little bit of rethinking. So, as architects, the way we practice, whether we really need to collaborate more, or we really need to talk to each other rather than working on your own. And probably I think this effort of the CSR group is an example of how this might work. People from different skill sets. So I think most importantly that how to use your skill set to really make an impact. And then young designers, you can come up with ideas, and then probably have discussion even more in terms of education. How probably we can teach younger generation that probably architecture is beyond what you perceive that it is. So, probably we can have more projects that thinking about society rather than, a boutique resort somewhere in Jeddah. Of course, that is also architecture, but probably we need to, have more discussion on this kind of thing. And then as a citizen, how can you contribute? Of course, you are not the frontliners, but probably you can, work on your computer and, draw something up so that probably people in the medical field can benefit from it. And then finally, I mean, like, it's all back to humanity. How, of course, as an architect or as a student, as a designer, as a lecturer, you need to contribute something. And probably what is important is that your intention to really make a difference. And I think with that, I think I'll end the presentation. I think we can have the discussion a bit more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hazazi, for that insightful thinking. So now we go to the next presenter. It's a duet between technology Suffian and also Idzfan. Suffian's from Kuala Lumpur, Idzfan's in Australia. So
hello. Hi, Assalamualaikum, and a very good morning to everyone. let me just share my slide. Oops.
Yes.
Can you see it? Okay,
Yes.
great.
Yep.
My name is Suffian, and I have with me my partner and buddy Idzfan, who is in Melbourne. We've worked quite a bit in terms of the I think health, health environment, health architecture whilst we were in Melbourne. And done a bit of a few hospitals, one of which was at the moment the largest children's hospital in the world, which was the Royal Melbourne Children's Hospital. So when we got this opportunity, it was something totally different. It was looking at a project or a proposal that wasn't going to be fancy. It wasn't going to have $1 billion budget, but it needed to be immediate, it needed to be precise, and needed to answer that call to action, especially on architects. So we took it as a challenge. We took it as as our contribution and our sort of way forward to help the frontliners at the time. So if we were to roll back time, I think it was the end of March and the MCO was just implemented. The numbers were rising. The spike in the numbers were increasing day by day, and everyone was worried. There was a sense of uncertainty. Were there going to be enough beds in hospitals? Were there going to be enough health personnel to help out? And all these questions, no one had the answer to. But we knew we needed to do something. PAM knew PAM needed to do something. So we came together, and I think the CSR group came up with a brief, and we needed to come up with, almost like Hazazi was saying, an instant hospital within 24 hours. So that's what we did. So I called Idzfan all the way in Melbourne, trying to figure out and have conversations of what we can do. So we started out with what architects do best. And of course it is going to the sketches. And that's pretty much how we started. So Idzfan might share some of his initial ideas.
Thanks for the introduction, Suffian. So okay, I think as AR Mum has mentioned earlier, so probably today we use our 10 minutes to actually share that story, that Sunday evening, 22nd March for 2 hours. So if I just quickly run through what's on the screen, you'll see now is actually, on your right, is actually pre-brief. As Dati Novina mentioned, the brief came later in the night. So that was the first 20 minutes. So the initial instinct was, we knew China built a hospital in a day, but we were like, okay, maybe if we can't do that, the next best thing is we have to retrofit. So I can't take full credit of what you see on screen, but the concept initially was a bed pod. So the idea was if you come up with this modular, I guess, prefabricated system where you can house a bed, and eventually back then we didn't know all the answers, but we thought, and again, it's all about, as Suffian was saying that to me, that we have to get our ideas out there. It's going to be a collaborative effort. So that's how it started. It was meant to be a retrofit module that you can actually plug to existing facilities. An hour later, Suffian said, all right, so the team has come up with a brief in case we need to actually start building the centers. So again, we just had to go quick. So, you know, it's all spatially to human ergonomics. So we know that, you know, like once you have a module, you can actually replicate it. So the sketch on the left is actually the first step of taking that initial module to conceptualize this into a facility. So that's actually my carpet. So it was a photo taken on a carpet to just relay back to Suffian in Kuala Lumpur. So again, it's as simple as that. You know, we can contribute. So that's how it started. So Suffian, maybe you want to go to the next one. So we moved to the second hour. All right, so the brief came in. So it starts to get a bit more serious. But again, Suffian reminded me that, look, we probably won't have all the answers tonight. There are 6 other teams. So just get our thoughts on paper. And the lesson was, I think, you know, what we can contribute best as architects is we can visualize ideas. We can put our ideas out there. So I focus on what I know best. I've had a chance to work on a couple of hospitals. So this layout is pretty much inspired by the ICU. So I tried my best to make it quick. I understand how proportions of an ICU. So just quickly on your left, so port 1 is for suspected patients, and then port 2 is confirmed patients. So just based on that, we know that if we get the modules right, everything else can be replicated. So conceptually, you will also have your support spaces, staff management spaces. So then I said to Suffian was, all right, you definitely put the building much quicker than I do. So the next half an hour, we just focus on the dimensions. If you go to the next slide, Suffian. We developed it a bit more. So we said, like, okay, maybe we just conceptualize it a bit more because the other teams can see it, and then they see something we don't see. Just put it on paper as clear as possible. And then Suffian took it from there to see how we can actually turn it into a building.
Yeah,
over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Idzfan. So having understood what Idzfan was developing, I think we were going for something modular, but at the same time flexible. So that the main parameters behind our design was establishing these 2 zones. So the suspected patient zone and confirmed patient zone. And from that, it needed to be sort of flexible enough to be implemented on different sites, because we were looking at about, I think through the conversations we had within the group, even at about 400 locations. So all these different locations would be car parks, football fields, just open spaces, but they would need to be highly adaptable. So we were looking at a proposal or an option that could just be plug and play. And of course, it needed to be built very quickly, because we were looking at if the numbers were skyrocketing, it would needed to be built very quickly. So the items or the materials that we were looking at to build this facility would need to be readily available. It would need to be lightweight for transport, adaptive to the different site parameters, and of course, it needs to be easily constructed. With the example in Wuhan, when they did the hospital, it's no longer operational. So even with these temporary facilities, they are going to be temporary. So the materials behind it, we are looking, could be reused for something else. So we were looking at a scaffolding, tarpaulin. These are items or materials that you can see almost everywhere. So it's a part of our everyday lives. And I think it would be transformed not only as a construction site, but actually as a temporary installment. So having the guidelines provided by Idzfan, we created these 2 pods and then housed it together. It wasn't going to be a fancy building. It wasn't going to win any architectural awards, but it suited the brief. So at the end, it was a plug and play option. So we needed to find something, or we needed to create something that was flexible enough, but at the same time, it could come in a day's notice and plug into an existing health facility or hospital. So I think in essence, that was our 24 hours or even less than that, but we had a subsequent 3 months, everyone being at home, rethinking our scheme of how to actually, or even retrospecting the design and thinking about what could we have done differently, what have we learned, and how to look better, how to look at health facilities better in the future. So we've got that discussion. I'll probably let Idzfan continue and wrap up on this point.
Thanks, Suffian. Okay, I guess we're almost to our 10 minutes. So just to wrap up, probably as a summary of our, I guess, Sunday evening, 22nd March. After that, I said to myself, looking at hospitals differently now, because hospitals can only grow bigger if we consider hospital per beds per population. So maybe hospitals in the future are only for really, really sick people, and we redesign so technology helps us. So patients will be monitored remotely, maybe. So that's a question for another webinar. We know America has done their first virtual hospital, so we leave that for another time. As a personal summary for me, again, I think I like to reiterate that it helped reminded me that as architects, one of the biggest things we can contribute is putting our ideas out there. Put it out there, don't be shy, because eventually it's all about collaboration as well. We don't know the answers, but we can find it together. The second one. And then I guess third one, I just want to take this opportunity to thank PAM CSR Committee. Probably there's too many names to mention, but AR Moom. So I think the impact has been great, because if I had said I had counted the days, so it's less than 3 months since that 22nd March Sunday, which today suddenly I can't see everyone. I can't see how many people are in the room. It's probably the first time I actually met a lot of you today on screen, but the impact is great. And so now your reach is very wide, so the possibilities are endless. And probably lastly, just be ready, everyone out there. I know not everyone's a fan, so just ready. The pen can contribute, and not everyone's a fan of the yellow button paper, but that's all we need.
Thank
Thanks.
you very much. Thank you very much,
Thank you, guys.
Suffian and also Idzfan. But before we go for the next speaker, it's a dynamic situation from then of MCO until now. As it is, we receive a lot of breaking news on our WhatsApp group from MERCY at CPRC. So what CPRC, Crisis Preparedness and Response Center. So they were at Putrajaya. Then suddenly we receive posting on group that the government has actually put a gazette on 417 places. So just now, Datin has already explained about isolation and also quarantine centers. So, but we like to know about this things on the 417 gazetted buildings. So Architect David Teoh was tasked to actually make sense of all these 417, and part of his presentation will also include this sort of 417. So over to you, Architect David Teoh.
Thank you, Architect Mus, and good morning, everyone. So I'll share my slides now. Okay, so this series is about architects involved in corporate social responsibility activities, and I'm grateful to represent our office, PAB, to contribute to this effort during the MCO. So 4 days into the MCO, I got a call on Sunday morning, and Architect Mustapha was on the call, and he said, look, we are looking for architects who can contribute to build or to design these temporary hospitals in collaboration with MERCY Malaysia and PAM. And so because we've been involved in many hospitals in the past, we thought that we could help. And I spoke to all the directors at the office, and they agreed that we should dedicate some resources into this and assist as much as we can. So in the meantime, after the call with Architect Mustapha, we were discussing amongst ourselves, what can we do? And we've already called engineers and quantity surveyors to get their assistance in the event that we do need to set this hospital up quickly. And so all of them were on board, and all of them were very enthusiastic about this. So we only got the brief at about 3:55. This is from my WhatsApp history. So 3:55 p.m. on Sunday, we got the brief. And one of the requirements was to construct this very quickly, like the other two speakers have said. And so we are looking online, and this is one of the things we found. This is the instant hospital they created in China. So it's some sort of like a modular cabin stacked next to each other and on top of one another, so you could build very large building very quickly. And one of our directors, Jin Soon, did this sketch, sent it to me at just before 6 p.m. on the same day, and said, look, we can just use this module, 3x6x3 cabins, and if you assemble it together, you can get this sort of like modular units that we can use as temporary hospitals. So looking at this, on the 15 by 18 sort of module, you can get 8 rooms, and then you have procedure rooms, medical prep, staff room and toilet as well. And each room would be single patient, isolation rooms with ensuite toilet. So that was the initial idea. And then we got an updated brief just before 8 p.m. on the same day. And we were supposed to actually submit this that same day itself on Sunday. But later on, Architect Mumtazah said, look, submit it at 8 in the morning. So that brief was a bit more detailed and it had more, there's appendices to the brief that had a lot of description of what was required. So our medical planning director, Azmi, was looking at it and he said, look, maybe we can just do a very basic medical planning scheme because what was being asked for, he may not be able to do much within the same night. So due to lack of time, this is what we came up with based on a 45 meter by 90 meter site. Conceptually, this was the plan for that field hospital. So just very simple planning, separating the services, you know, coming in, you have a screening area, and then you have the hospital proper and some open area as well next to the hospital. And this is Azmi's sketch. So Encik Azmi did a sketch of the hospital and we thought that maybe some of these things we can plug in the modular scheme I showed earlier along the central spine of the field hospital. So that by the time we saw this sketch, it was already about past midnight. And the rest of the night, we got a few of our colleagues together to do some production so that we can submit the report at 8 a.m. the next day. So that's the cover of our report that we submitted. And after this report was submitted, we were invited into the PAM Emergency Team WhatsApp group. And in the WhatsApp group, we were discussing what to do next. And we were told that there was this like 400 over sites which were gazetted as quarantine sites and probably suitable for field hospitals. And because there were so many sites, we decided maybe we should just analyze them just in case we need to use them. So what I did was I got my office, my team in my office, about 5 of us, to look into assessment of the potential quarantine sites. So for this assessment of the quarantine sites, we found that the list of sites, 409, the first list, included public hospitals, sorry, not public hospitals, public universities, community colleges, technical institutes, former national service camps, as well as some hospitals owned by the government, like the Tabung Haji hospitals. And since we're all stuck at home, maybe we could just do a Google Map analysis. We call it a desktop analysis. So this is the kind of analysis we did. So we Googled each site. We had a Google Doc, Google Slides document that was live, and many people could collaborate and add to this analysis, right? So for example, this site was good because it was, about an acre worth of land around it, and it was not that far from a hospital. For example, this other site, not so suitable because it's a shop house. So you can't use it as a quarantine center, neither can you use it as a field hospital, right? So this is the kind of analysis we did. So we have the list of the names of all the hospitals, sorry, all the quarantine sites, and then the distance from this site to the nearest screening hospital, as well as the nearest admitting hospital for COVID-19. At that time, the admitting hospital was just the main state hospitals, meaning that let's say you were screened at Sungai Petani Hospital in Kedah, you would have to be admitted to the Alostar Hospital, right? If you were found to be positive. So if we were to set up a field hospital, we would need to know how far these field hospitals were to the admitting hospital, because the expertise, the support must come from the main hospital, right? So they have to, if they were to set up a field hospital, they have to second some staff to this field hospital, and they may not be fully equipped in terms of equipment as well as expertise to deal with, let's say a patient gets, the situation becomes worse, they need to send this patient to the bigger hospital. So that was our consideration. The Another thing that we did, one of our senior project architects, Siti Haja, she was involved in, oh, sorry, before that, this slide shows all the sites that we put together. You can see quite a number of slides. So as the list got updated, we kept updating the slides. So the government kept gazetting new buildings for quarantine sites. So we had to analyze them as well. So back to what I was saying earlier, one of our senior architects, Siti Haja, she was involved in the CSR team before the MCO. And one of the things we found that we needed to do was to try and put together an architectural material and supplier list, as well as a list of specialist contractors. In the event that we need to build a field hospital very quickly, at least we have all these people lined up to assist. So when using the WhatsApp group with the PAM Emergency Team, many of us are working on various projects and we know many suppliers and contacts. So we call all of these guys up and ask, hey, would you like to help? As a CSR effort, if we need to do a field hospital, can you help? And some of them are quite positive. Some of them even offered to donate materials if there was a need for a field hospital. So we are quite encouraged by this, and it's a very good positive step forward that all Malaysians are quite altruistic and generous in that sense. So in conclusion, we are very glad as an office that we are able to do our bit.
1 minute, David. Okay.
During the MCO, we were able to contribute what we can to assist. And we are also very happy that we made many new friends in the process in this emergency team group, and hope that in the future we can also contribute to more initiatives like this. So thank you very much, and back to you, Mus.
Yeah. Thank you very much, David. Now we go to Architect Chan from Sabah, because he actually works on one of those many actual gazetted sites. So over to you, Architect Chan from Chan Foong Sing Architect of Kota Kinabalu.
Okay, let me share. Okay, good morning and salam sejahtera. I will start my story, which is very far away from Sabah, Kota Kinabalu, which is this story was started since Corona. Okay, the background. Okay, I received a call from the state on the 29th March, just asked me to come up a quick sketch and estimation in the number of beds, which is the area provided to me is about 15,000 square feet. So the next day, I was going to the site. Then I must come up to help the state to come up building assessment, which is on the 30th March. Of course, here I list down some of the conditions we must consider whether the building or the site is suitable to act for the either quarantine center or isolation ward. First thing is the building location and the logistic point of view. After that is existing building condition, which is we must see the building style, architecture, CNS, and M&E. Of course, the very important, we must also trace back all the maintenance reports and records. Then we also cannot start anything if without the as-built drawing, especially the building plan. If good, we have another set of drawing like the M&E drawing. All these things are very important for us to understand the existing building condition, whether fit for the purpose or not. And don't forget, we must bring our teammates, at least an M&E engineer and the existing maintenance team. In this project, we didn't call the CNS because basically the building structurally not much change. We should do it lah. Still safe, still maintain good. So after that, I would like to starting from the locality. From here, we do a quick study, which is the location from the Lika Sport Complex to the hospital Queen Elizabeth. This is the GH in KK. The shortest distance is 9 minutes. The longest is 11 minutes. Meaning, see, it is quite optimum distance, easy to handle, 5.9. Another hospital in KK, we call it Hospital Likas. Eventually, the full name Hospital Wanita dan Kanak-Kanak. We have two alternatives. The fastest shortest is 11 minutes. The other one is 13 minutes. Also can trip the site. Eventually, why the site consider? Because first priority is fulfilled. Why the time and also distance very important? You don't forget, because they must supply the medical and also the food. This is, they need to do it every day. That's why the distance is very important in this consideration. Okay, after the locality, we go inside to the surrounding of the site. Okay, this is the circles, the radius, more or less 500 to 600 meter, which is nearby the closest taman. The housing area is Taman Likas Jaya, is just as the edge. Whereby another taman is Andara Bangsa and also Yakin Jaya is a little bit further. This one maybe more or less 700. This one is about 1 km away. Meaning to say the site have a safe buffer in case any, let's say unforeseen leakage of the virus or what is still not so direct to impact, to affect the existing housing scheme. Another beautiful part of this site, because it's located inside the Likas sport complex, we have full of the sport facility. If the doctor allowed, give them green light, of course the patient or the SUI, they can go to the nearby places. They all have all the sport facility to support. But this is, we let the doctor to decide. We don't question on that. After that, this is the site. The first day I was going to the site, this is photo I taken. I just named the 4 sides of the building, which is only interior facade. This is A, this side A, this side is C, and this side is actually B. This is D. So let us go to the close-up of the ceiling. Original ceilings like that. The floor is parquet, is like that. Okay. Then after that, this is the as-built drawing. I think it's easily more than 30 years. Still hand-drawn, the as-built drawing. I start the first sketch is based on this drawing. Without this drawing, if we want to do the remeasurement again, then the time is not on our side. Then everybody know, this COVID-19, we do all this project, actually is in a race with the time, because the speed to spell out is very fast. It's high contagious. That's why the time is very important. After that, we go to see, okay, what sort of suitability check? Eventually, out of here, this is the first list. I got 2 lists. This is most important thing. Of course, first thing, the functionality of space, it must be fit for purpose. After that, fire safety, including passive, active, also must be sound to the user. After that, the air conditioning. This one, air conditioning requirement, the hospital and daycare, they have their own standard already. So we can refer to their standard. Power supply, we must understand the peak hour and off-peak hour. Peak hour most likely is in the daytime, because daytime we need a full function of the aircon. Otherwise, if we put 170, 180 patients together, they will feel very hot. That's why we make sure the power is enough. Eventually, we also discuss with the SASB, the Sabah Electricity Sdn Bhd, to stand by a genset. No, we also in part of our plan. In case any like blackout, we still have a mobile genset to supply for the electricity. After that is the electrical, the lighting fitting, power socket. We also provide the socket for individual cubicle. After that, I will show you some of the picture. The lighting fitting, there is some of the common lighting like the high bay. High bay is existing lighting, but very warm. After that, we change to some fluorescent tube to cut down the expenses on the electricity. And also, we don't want like to overhang the power supply and also the fitting. Genset, just I mentioned already, existing we have 1, but we stand by another mobile genset, which is arranged by the DPKK, Dewan Bandaraya Kota Kinabalu, with the SASB. Of course, don't forget, because this either quarantine center or isolated ward, we need the patient or suspect. They must stay there. Normally, it's 2 weeks for the 1 round of checking of the testing. So that's why how they pass their time. That's why internet is very important. This is also in our consideration. I think first I would spend some time on the space functionality. Okay, you see here, this is the red zone on the ground floor. Okay, since this is the project, is the temporary COVID-19 isolated ward. So original plan, we allow a space for those positive patient. Because the positive patient in Sabah here, 85% are from asymptomatic, meaning say just a normal people like you, like me, they don't have any symptom, but they are tested positive. All these positive patients we group together in the red zone. So after that, I bring you to see what happened in the first floor. First floor, you see the green color, the number one. Actually, this is an entrance for the staff, medical staff, for the clean staff to coming in. To coming in, they will go up here. Then after they will go to the staircase, go to second floor. Second floor, then they walk down from the staircase. They join back to the first floor. They coming in to the green zone. So we make sure the green zone, they don't have, they cannot facing the cross contamination with the dirty staff. Dirty staff is number 3. Okay, where this number 3 staff coming in, they will go through a staircase, small staircase, go down to the restaurant when they fully PPE. Before they go into restaurant must be fully PPE. Then after they do their job, maybe they run in a shift, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. Before they going back to green zone, they go through a yellow zone. Yellow zone meaning say specifically for the dirty staff. Then we have 2 toilets at this floor, first floor, 2 toilets. For the dirty staff, they clean everything before they walk back to join back to the green zone. So let me to bring you see what happened on the ground floor. Ground floor also got 2 toilets. These 2 toilets strictly for the patient to use, including these 2 also for patient to use, meaning to say patient, they can using one side as a female, another side as a male toilet. So we make sure the floor reserved 100% for the patient restaurant for the ground floor, whereby the first floor is the in between clean and the dirty stuff. After that, I show you a photo. In between, actually, we do a partition. So we control strictly. There is no cross-contamination. Okay, let's go. I show you some of the photo. Okay, this is the entrance number 1 for the clean stuff. They're going up. Okay, here I touch about a bit. Eventually, under the government policy, the car park you need to be gazzetted also. So the car park also a consideration to be gazzetted together with the building, because the building must be the car park to function properly. After that, I show you this is the entrance number 2. Number 2, I go back again. Okay, actually number 2 is here on the ground floor. So number 2, remember ground floor all red zone. That's why patient coming in ground floor. After okay, they come out also from here. So they strictly cannot move to other floors. Other floor strictly we are reserved for the medical staff and also the new staff and the dirty staff in it. So let me continue again to the photo. Okay, patient 1, 2. Now we go to the number 3. This is the entrance number 3. Eventually, I show you. This is a partition to divide the entrance 1 and 3. Let me show you again. 1 and 3 happen where? Here, 1 and 3, because they're using the same floor. So this is very important, the partition to divide, to make sure 1 and 3 will not cause contaminated. I think mainly this is the concern for the architect to understand their circulation floor, for us to do a planning, a design planning. After we have this, the rest of the finishing, I believe, is quite straightforward. Only this part we have to sit down together with the hospital technical team. This is the 1 and 3. I hope everybody clear. Then we go to, okay. I mentioned here, this is a very important feature. They call it empty room. No? You see the round circle here? Empty room is a staircase for the green zone for them to walk down. So we go back to the plan view. To the plan view, yes, eventually the staircase, but this line a little bit thick, you cannot see carefully. Eventually they come down from here. Okay, what's the function of this empty room? The empty room eventually is an airlock. You see, outside one door, inside one door. Then we also install a exhaust fan on top. We suck the air in to push the air out. Eventually, we only achieve consider positive pressure is this empty room. The air sucked in must be clean air. clear the air, make sure the door open, outside the dirty air will not coming in. So whatever air is pushed out on it. So this is something we achieve here. All right. After this, we should go to the partition. Just I mentioning some of the partition, the internal, external, to have a properly barrier in between green and the red. All right, we want to show you. We also cover up this staircase. Remember the staircase? They come up from the second floor to first floor at this staircase. That's why we need, because originally without roof, but during raining, the nurses, doctors, they still need to use this access. That's why this is the roof, also part of our job here. Then ambulance drop-off point is not a fancy design, just very simple, down to the earth. As long as the height and the width functional for the ambulance to park in, discharge the patient inside, good enough. So they don't want to spend time and money on this thing. This is a fast response type of design. Okay.
Sorry, Architect Chan, got 2 minutes for you. 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. All right. The suitability check eventually here, like CCTV, public address, toilet, sewerage, general building condition, the mic, security also in the consideration. After that, the rest only I just go through what's the before and after. Eventually, this is before they do this way. After that, we using some light color to blend in. Because at the time, KK only available this dark red color. But finally, we come out the design like this. Then the overall effect still okay. So I run through few photos to show you combination of the high bay and also the fluorescent light, which is what's the effect when we at the bedtime and at the night time, they have all the individual fluorescent tube. This is at the night, the effect. So bedtime, they have their own individual fluorescent tube they can control by themselves. And the toilet, we worry the shower point is insufficient. We also aid in the water closet. Don't forget, must provide them the hook to hang their clothes. After that, we have a water dispenser. Then this is the door. Just now remember the dirty stuff. Only dirty stuff, they go back here to the first floor. So the patient, they cannot enter here. This is also very important consideration to have the isolation. Okay, this is the alarm. All the DP we check, including the EL lighting we check, make sure it's functional. At least anything happen, they can run. Because this building, we don't have any like sprinkler design, only have some hot spray on it. So after that, we also don't forget to provide them a ventilator. You see why we have 2 types of ventilator? Because that time MCO lockdown, KK, we don't have all same design, or we must mix and match. This is the first priority because he have the water cool function, but this one we don't have. I think more or less here. I think the rest I will reserve in the question and answer session. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, Kamal, Mustapha. Your time.
Thank you very much, Architect Chan. Wow, now you all have seen from the schematic to quite a little bit of developed design. This is the actual constructed quarantine and isolation center. Well done, all the speakers. Thank you very much, speakers. So I think now we'd like to open the floor for questions. And at the bottom there, you have the Q&A button. So just type in your question. I can see one question there, but I also received some questions on the WhatsApp. So while people are actually typing down, so I would like to direct these questions to maybe to Architect Datin Nowina to answer this question from Dr. Naziati. She was asking why modular pod around the bed, why not around the human being, and how they interact with the building. So because this is maybe a question which is on the onset of the brief, so maybe that would be on your table for you to answer, Datin. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and good morning again. I think the brief is very, very broad. I think it's being sort of done so that it's more to performance based and based on criteria that was gathered from various experiences. But when you talk about detail, and in fact, I think none of the schemes that we have come up with have not gone to much detail because we do not have the time. And we said, thank God also we do not have to do it, except for what is being presented by Architect Chan and of course, and also the government. I think when we were doing the brief, architect Mum has actually brought up what Dr. Naziati's inspiration in terms about bringing the disabled or people. The considerations are all in there, but within that space of time, what can the designers do much in terms of details? I think we will take note of that in future. But I think it is based on the designers' aspiration, how they want to actually execute that design. I'm not so sure that I've answered her question, but we understand what she meant, and if we do the detail, yeah, we will look forward more. I think there are a lot of stages to this. Yes, thank you.
Any other questions, or if anyone would like to respond to that same particular question on this?
Which particular design was she talking about, or was it basically just on the brief?
Just a comment.
A comment.
Yes, because you know, when we are doing an emergency, you have to do or make do with what you have. So I think Architect Chan has got some. Oh, there's one more question here. That's good. Okay. Oh, that's okay. There's a question from Adela here from Studio Bikin. Architect Mumtazah, would PAM CSR team be moving forward with a little more detail to form some sort of guideline for future use in case this retrofit is needed in the future?
Mum
Answer first, then I can answer later.
Yeah. Actually, we are compiling everything now, what we have, and then we have not done a serious, how should I say, dissect through every single designs. But yes, we are looking forward to put this as a form of documentation so that it can be used as a reference to everybody in the future. You know, pandemic, we hope we are not going to face another pandemic, but it is not just about pandemic. It is also about disaster or natural disasters or even war for that matter. So yeah, all these studies will have to be put together, and we are actually documented, and perhaps if time permits and if everybody is willing, we can look at it in further detail. Tatin?
Yeah, just to add on, I think while we were doing this, we would like to call upon, I think, members and even non-members who are listening to provide, I mean, link to us. I mean, give your contribution as well, because I think this is for everybody. And if we could be a center or some sort of a facilitator to this, we would do it. And I think also like inform that not just Malaysia, even in Asia under our ACSR unit, we are coming out also with some sort of a tips for design, because we don't want to stipulate or be very rigid into the design, but we give tips to how to go about it, because remember, we don't know.
Okay, thank you very much, Datin. I got one here very interesting part, because I think a few of us, like for instance, showed something from China. This is from Chow Bin Tan to the panelists, or any one of you can answer, but is there any study from MOH with China, how they able to build contingency in such short period? Are our proposal feasible? So it's a question to, I think, to the presenters. And can I ask Suffian for the most obvious one, which is using the scaffolding. So how do you answer that, Suffian, that question from Ms. Chow?
I think we were trying to provide answers that was out of the box, in a sense where you would have your modules, your containers, and that would be quite obvious. But I think the brief was set up in a way to provide an immediate impact. So I think we were looking at it in a way, how could it be cheap, but perform and also be
Available.
almost available, directly available. So that was why we came to the way to the scheme that we proposed. It is in no way trying to say that it's perfect. It was the beginning of a discussion. And of course, it would have, like Datin was saying, go through different stages of details to if we were going to build it in that sense.
Okay, we got one question here for Architect Chan.
Okay.
What is the main feedback from doctors and nurses about your outcomes so that can improve in the future? I think this is the part where the post-occupancy evaluation of what you have done. So can you answer that question?
Okay, actually, my worry is not so much on doctor and nurses eventually, because why? Because we work hand in hand, starting from the Jabatan Kesihatan Ketua Pengarah. They also assign a doctor full-time in charge for this isolated ward, which is Dr. Anbar. Dr. Anbar, he also the MERCY member, active member in Sabah. That's why I click with him very easy. Actually, we work with him closely together with the project implementer JKR. So can I show a little bit on, I got some material to share, to let people understand the structure of this pandemic issue in Sabah, because this hospital only play a part. They also involve another hospital services of part, which is we call it Teoh, you know. So can I share a bit?
Yep.
So let me share. This is the thing I share.
Got a few more questions, Dr. Chan, so just be quick. Thank you.
Okay, here. You see, on the federal, it's starting from MKN, Majlis Keuangan Negara. So I only choose the three main important subjects, which are the health, project, and safety and security. Health, of course, KKM is a leader. JPNS, they have a Jabatan Negeri Kesihatan in Sabah. And the HQE was reported to this. This one is reported to KL. This is the structure of reporting. Whereas the KKR is a Kementerian Kerja Raya. Under them, there's a HQ, JKR in HQ. I believe the MAEPS was handled by JKR HQ. Whereas for Sabah, is JKR Negeri Sabah. On the security and safety, eventually involve PDRM, ATM, Pompa, and RELA. So what happened in the state? Okay, in the state actually is led by the Jabatan Kuasa Bencana Negeri dan Daerah. That's why the daerah go down to the local level. This is at the state level. We have the health, which is the KKKR. Eventually, I was called by KKKR. I'm acting on behalf of the KKKR to do a coordination, and also the early I come out the drug design. But after the design come out, I hand over to the project implementation, because KPI, Kementerian Pembangunan Infrastructure, they were dealing with the JKR Negeri Sabah, whereby the building owner, this project is owned by the Kementerian Belia dan Suffian. Okay, we come to local level. Why I'm mentioning important also Suffian, because they are the one like on off the aircon. They also doing some of the routine maintenance, including the soup, including the food. Food is by Jabatan Kebajikan Sabah. Eventually, we just do a small part to fit them a building to run it. Of course, let's say you ask me, the doctor and nurses so far, they said they don't have any major complaint. Only thing we receive some of the maybe feedback not so positive from the user. You see, because the user, when they put them, they lock them 14 days there, I think emotionally they also a bit not so okay already. So in case they go to the toilet, sometimes the toilet maybe the water, because we have happened one thing, we don't expect the water valve was broken down at that time, you know. That's why they complaining the water supply problem. But after that, we fixed up with JKR, and also the aircon we also fixed up because the aircon already 30 years old. The building condition is not full capacity. Let's say we have 8 compressor, eventually 2 is not in order already. Some of the feedback coming back is due to the building condition is the limitation, because it's a little bit too old over the 30 years.
Yeah, Architect Chan, I got to stop you there. I think there's a lot of questions. In fact, I'm overwhelmed with questions on ventilation. So since you're on that topic, just before we answer question, I have a friend of ours here, Joseph Kwan from Hong Kong, all the way from Hong Kong. I think Joseph Kwan there. Hello, Joseph. So he is also asking about ventilation. All right. From the Wuhan experience, okay, natural ventilation and natural daylight is two of the ways to actually recuperate patients faster. So how are we going to answer this question about ventilation? I think if you answer this question of ventilation, natural ventilation, I think we have answered about almost 5 or 6 questions here. So can you, okay, the question is, to provide good ventilation without cross-contamination airflow and keeping shared toilet bathroom clean to avoid infection and commoners, how do you do that? Because I think that is very crucial. And also another thing, all these spaces that you showed us is all inside the deep plan of the public buildings. It's not nowhere near to windows. So how do you deal in order to create this natural ventilation effect? Before you answer, if there are some engineering questions here, not to worry, we have the second edition on the 18th. The engineers will actually answer because we got another 4 set, because remember I told you we got 8 people. So this is the first set of the 8. So next, on the 18th will be the next set of the 8. So A.R. Chan, please answer the ventilation. This is the most important part in hospital and also patient recuperation. Thank you very much.
Okay, eventually JKR got one standard checklist on M&E requirement. They also asking the question whether the aircon pressure is negative or positive, you know. This is including the Jabatan Keselamatan Ketua Pengarah, Dr. Christina Rundi. She also aware. In an ideal situation, of course, we are mentioning like positive pressure. Actually, positive pressure, I think, is a compulsory condition for the operation theater or even the ICU. But quarantine center or this asymptomatic isolated ward, for me, is not defined as ICU so crucial. I mean, the design requirement. Actually, just now, I would like to ask our Tatin AR Novena, because just now you show me some of the information. I just cannot take the photo mentioning under certain situation, we need a normal pressure. Sometimes it's positive pressure, sometimes negative pressure. Maybe Tatin, you can help me to answer a bit on that part. I only admitted this whole project, the only objective I cannot achieve is I cannot change the existing positive pressure become negative pressure become positive. Because why? Originally, 30 years ago, this building was designed as a badminton hall or multi-purpose hall. Multi-purpose hall, you ask any person is positive pressure. So I cannot change, certainly become a negative. See? Why they need negative? Because they just prevent any leakages of the air. It may able to bring the dirty air or contaminated air to the outside surrounding. But to answering your question, when the patient they are coming in, they stay inside the building. Ideally, of course, like we say, we're using the natural ventilation, natural lighting. But the problem, if we allow them to using natural ventilation or natural lighting, maybe more suitable is go back to the design like the field hospital type lah. I believe maybe field hospital type. But okay. Field hospital type, yeah.
Okay, Datin, we know that we are actually designing something like in the war emergency, you know, so how do we make it happen where that's the reason why architects here just take their pens, sketch it out. What does it mean? So Datin, can you answer in the brief moments about how that ventilation is all about? Thanks.
Okay, I think like any project, we go to the user. So we make calls. Okay, we make calls to Ministry of Health. So I still have contact with the planning division, and also I get also contact with the ID specialists. So what exactly is this COVID-19 all about? So then we talk about ventilation. So what kind of ventilation? They said, oh, okay, how it's being transmitted. So again, go back to the transmission of this virus. So we were talking about droplets. So of course they were talking about also airborne, but it's not basically airborne, but it's a droplets in the air. So so using of just normal air conditioning, but is still accepted. So again, it's a balance. Of course, ideally we should all have negative pressure, individual room, and so on. But the space that what Chan has designed, and also because we have changed it as a quarantine center, not just as a field hospital, that the function is different. It's more of a low risk patient. So what does it, again, it has to be a medical requirement that has to identify how crucial it is. So that's where the distancing come in. Talk about volume. So you still have some sort of ventilation that is included. So again, it is in the short space of time, and the decision has been done very quickly. It may not be ideal. Here I'll take opportunity also to bring on. I think the question is now about the reference to China. So we have also actually we got reference from China, because we have under the UIA-Public Health Group, Professor Dr. Huang, who actually did the Wuhan, but last time was for SARS. Now he has make it better for COVID-19 because he learned from the mistakes that he did in SARS. So I think that's how we also get the idea from them. And I'm sure that again, it will be much more transmitted in the future series of our webinar, inshallah.
Thank you, Datin.
Can I add on a bit? Yeah, can I add a bit?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you see, Hong Kong or Wuhan, they are happening in the, I think Wuhan happened in February, it's not Hong Kong. Your friends from Hong Kong. The temperature, climatic factor is different from Malaysia. In Malaysia, if you force your patient without aircon, I think the whether we kill our patient first or not, problem like that. But very important, I also take advice from the doctor. They give me a good advice. They are saying very important, you must using mask. Because mask, it will stop the sources of the spreading for the virus. Just like the toilet, just now somebody is asking. Eventually, toilet also asking them how you make sure this virus will not become another source of infection after we discharge everything in the septic tank or the sewer treatment plant. Then the whole town you may spread also. So that's why they're saying you must do a hygienic cleaning, maybe every 1 hour or every 2 hours. They have the protocol eventually, the medical
SOP.
Eventually, I also try to highlight whether possible we construct a chemical treatment pit before the final sludge discharge to the common drain or the water body surrounding. But we started back the cost and time not allow us to do that, you know. Then the doctor telling me, even our HQ, these are GH, we don't have so complete. We also use it. So how? That's why we come up to that situation. We discuss every day, every night. Sometimes we have to contest the idea what's the best to do. But don't forget, this is an emergency. I cannot get a 2 quotation for every thread of the work. No, 2 proposals also cannot get. We just call some people have to meet. No place to meet for discussion also. That's a big
very correct, Architect Chan. All of us here, this is the first batch. The second batch too have got the same problem. What we are having here is unprecedented moments, unprecedented events, not just in Malaysia, but throughout the world. You know, at this time, there was a race for ventilators. No, it's like a bidding. You know, who pays the highest get the first ventilator. So, I think there's how long more do we have? Technical, just let me know. Okay, I got one question for Architect David. How many gazetted sites from the study that you have done? Because this is one question that are actually able to be used as quarantine and also isolation centers. Just give you percentage. That's what we know. I think you got the first set of 409, then you got the 120. So how many percent?
So basically, I think we have to go back to when this thing happened, right? It was 3 days after the MCO. The government gazetted this list of 409 sites, the first gazette. But you have to also be aware that every week they're updating with new gazettes. So I think what happened was at the beginning, they had this list of buildings which we studied, 409 sites, but we found not very suitable, right? I think the government also realized that there's things you need to be aware of. First is if you are returning from overseas, you are considered like a person under investigation. You don't know whether you have 19 yet. So these guys, they have no symptoms, they're not sick, but they should go home directly. So they have to put them somewhere. And eventually they gazetted hotels for these individuals. Also, if you are a close contact of a COVID-19 patient, you are also a person under investigation, you have to put them somewhere so that they can be monitored. But they're not sick, they need to be placed somewhere. So later on the government gazetted more hotels and hostels and things like that. But the first list was just all the universities, facilities, national training, national service camps. And many of them, about 60% of them were suitable, but 40% not so suitable. And as they went along, they discovered that what Architect Chan did in Sabah was a good example. We have to convert like large indoor stadiums or exhibition centers where you can place the asymptomatic COVID-19 positive patients in one location, like what Architect Chan did in Sabah. So they did that in Klang Valley, they did that in Mayaps in Serdang, and it wasn't used during the MCO. It's only used recently for the foreign workers, right? But these are the kind of things we need to be aware of. You don't need to build a full-fledged hospital. You just need a place that is a temporary facility, and then you still need to refer them to the major hospital.
Yes.
When you require, then when they require, let's say someone in the facility architecture I was working on, his condition worsens, then you cannot leave them there. You have to admit them to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, right? That was the plan. So I think once 3 days after MCO, none of us had any idea how this would work, but eventually everybody started to get an idea how it should how to manage these things. And it became clearer, the picture became clearer. So in the future, if there was a pandemic, then the emergency plan would be.
Okay, I think we are almost to finish. So I think there's one question here which strikes me is there was a request that our group needs to consolidate all these findings and make it into like a handbook or something like a manual so that we can actually look at it and also use it at any point of time. And I know we are lucky we have so many younger architects willing to actually push in their ideas and also solutions which are sometimes out of the box. So I think the technical seems want us to carry on, is it? So I just glide along. Okay, Idzfan, there's one question here about in Melbourne, they were asking, okay, was any architect involved in the setting out of location for M&E services? I was involved to hospital in Geelong. Whether any architect was consulted as during those times. So this question from Rosalie.
Unmute myself, right? To be honest, I actually don't have the answer to that question, but generally when we do M&E, we set out anything that involves human ergonomics, so medical service panel, anything that's got to do with nurses plugging the equipment, and probably just to, maybe if I can add to that ventilation thing, I agree with Datin Nowina, because eventually it's not just about getting the best, meaning that, for example, if we think about it, we did have a think that in this situation, what would you need to do in order to make say a standard 32 inpatient bed unit to also be a negative isolation ward. So when we did that studies, the engineers say came back and the requirements was almost double. So everything needs to be extra. So it means that when it's not performing under negative isolation, you would actually have to double spec everything. So plant room increase, so everything increase. So in the end, as Datin already said, it's about the balance, isn't it? So it's not about just architecture, it's about like getting feedback from the medical staff. So how would they manage that situation? So an alternative that probably came is actually, instead of a negative isolation, it's actually every MNE can still remain the same because it's got, say, one inpatient unit has got its own MNE. So we can rethink it as a class S isolation. So the difference might be is we just design the entrance so that there's a flexible space. So it could potentially be one of those meeting or handover rooms that in the event it needs to be an isolation ward, it acts up as an empty room with a gown up, gown down function. So in that instance, as well as, you know, that Tatin mentioned and David mentioned, that it's how you manage the patients. So it can be an isolation ward, but when critical patients still goes to ICU. So that's I mean, I'm not sure I answered the question, but yeah.
Yeah. Hazazi, your thoughts on it, because I saw yours almost of a similar solution to what the Filipinos are actually doing,
Yeah.
you know, where they I know there's this one architect office in Philippines, a friend of mine, WTA, if I'm not mistaken, they are doing 70 odd places, you know, 70 odd sites. So how do you respond to this, Hazazi?
Yeah, I think like for instance the Philippine example, I think it's a scaled down version. I think it's basically pretty much similar with what I have in mind. So it's either, I mean, it depends on let's say you know, further discussion and advice from, you know, medical officer or people who actually knows about this, whether it's better for you to have, you know, a bigger facility, or you have a smaller facility that you can, you know, transport it into different. So whether it's better in terms of resources to combine, let's say, 200 patients, or within the same area you have 5 hospitals that have, you know, 40 people inside it. So in terms of resources, so I think of course in terms of selection, we are still, you know, in the process of you know, understanding and learning about this. But I think probably, yeah, that is a really good you know, example. You see the difference. So the first typology, which is the China typology, you know, the big box, and then the Wuhan grid inside there, so the whole stadium. So probably in terms of resources, better because all the doctors would be together there. But probably like the smaller ones, you know, whether let's say Manila is a metropolitan city, that probably is very hard for you to get, let's say, one huge you know, space that you can house all of this. And probably I think it goes to Wuhan just now, because of the climate is different than us in tropics. Probably the way they respond is also different, and probably you know, the selection of the site itself, whether it's better for it to be in an urban area or suburban area or slightly remote area. So those are, you know, the kind of consideration that we are still learning and trying to understand as well. So yeah, I think I mean, like there are some questions also asking whether, you know, some other ideas might work or not. So I think it's part of the discussion that probably you know, like our proposal or 6 proposal or some other proposal as well. So those are, like, say, ideas. But in terms of material accessibility and you know, to talk about our specific context over here, whether, you know, we can actually build it fast and efficient and affordable, so that would be like a longer decision.
Okay.
And I think AR Chan, with his experience, probably later on, if let's say, you know, this kind of MCO thing prolonged, probably we really need to, you know, seriously work on it and I think probably come up with a certain, you know, guideline that for other people to work as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Hazazi. Okay, so I think thank you for the participation. I think it was a very vibrant between the participant and also panelists. But before we end, I just need 5 words from each one of the participants. So let's go and hear what's in 5 words. Architect Chan, in 5 words, what's the way forward?
Okay, I would rather say let's do CSR professionally and passionately.
Thank you. David Teoh?
My 5 words are: more hands make light work.
Suffian?
Architects need to work together.
Idzfan?
Environment for sharing and collaboration.
Hazazi?
Unite, let's reform practice education for humanity.
Tatin Nowina?
Not prepared, but okay. As you said, it's open. I have to keep on. I do not have the 5 words, but you have to be open, accept more research and keep going on. So never have a template or rather keep on researching so it never ends. I don't know.
Mumtazah,
Okay.
your
The last word.
Teamwork. Let's do CSR.
Okay, I understand you got the final last words. I give to you. I give you 40 seconds.
Okay. Time was a major factor when one faces emergency situations. It was a challenging moment during MCO, and we are lucky it was only a pandemic and not war or natural disaster. It is very important that as architects, we have to be objective, keep a clear mind, and not be clouded by negative news and negative vibes. So, teamwork, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have come to the end of the session. Before we end, please accept our sincere apologies if there's any shortcomings. However, we hope that you have gained as much as from the papers and also presenters and also from the questions. So thank you for the participation and for being an awesome participant you all, and have a pleasant weekend. So we hope to see you again on PAM Online Series CSR Journey, the Design of Quarantine Centers Edition 2 on Thursday, 18 June at 3 p.m. So be safe, stay safe, and think safety. Kita jaga kita.
Okay.
See you all.
Alhamdulillah.
Okay.